Hey everybody, it's Robert Newman, your favorite real estate SEO founder in the world. Today, what we're going to do is you can see my questionable looking mug here on the screen. And what we're doing today is I'm going back and going to review Sierra Interactive, a platform I have not reviewed in over 5 years. I have a user license like I did the first time. I'm going to go through and look at integrations. I'm about 3 hours into my research so far. The first time took me 60, 70, 80 hours. I'm finding that there is a lot of replication between the first review and this one, but I'm also discovering that there is new stuff and I'm having to go through it. So what I've decided to do this time, instead of spending a week and a half learning all things Sierra Interactive so that you don't have to, that's the purpose of this video. I'm going to go through and study every element on one of the largest CRMs available to real estate agents. I'm going to break it out feature by feature, pros and cons it, and try to explain to you what it should be used for, best case, worst case. Now, before we get into all of that, what I wanted to do today was to let you know that there are some big changes afoot. In 2022, a company by the name of ASG bought Sierra Interactive. Now, in theory, I always get his last name wrong, so I'm reading it here. Ben Pescoe and Brandon Hedges are theoretically on the management team still at Sierra Interactive. Whether that's true, whether they're actually involved in any meaningful way, I do not know. But I've heard some surprising things from longtime clients of Sierra Interactive that I will cover later in this review. It is the purchase, the news that I'm getting from customers, and the fact that I decided to build something myself that would compare to Sierra Interactive in order to give those people who were dissatisfied with the acquisition and its results a place to go where they can get similar or increased or enhanced performance. All right, so I'm trying to be as transparent as possible inside this review. But first, we're going to give them an honest and deep look, something I haven't had the time to do or made the time to do in many years. And we're going to really break out where this CRM platform shines. We're going to talk about maybe where some of the disconnect that might be happening between the company and its clients is coming from. And we're going to really dive in. So what I would like all of you to do is buckle up. And for those of you who don't understand, are not massive consumers of YouTube videos, understand this. When you do a very long video like the one I'm about ready to do, you do a video index down below. And we break that index up into many bite-sized pieces. And our objective is we just want you to go look in the description. If you think I'm going to say something interesting, or if you're a longtime follower of mine, you know I'm going to say something interesting, just go down and find the subject that interests you and save yourself the huge dive. Unless, of course, you're really thinking about making a massive investment, moving a major team over, and then it's quite possible that you might want to watch every single segment from start to finish. All right, with no further ado, we're going to jump into the one section that I have actually already researched, which is the Knowledge Center, the knowledge base. All right. That is always a section that I get very interested in. Integrations, activate your dialer, distribute your leads, onboard your team, view all 17 articles. So that you guys can see here that if I was to commit to reading all of this information, it would be about 150 pages. And I have no doubt that all of you are feeling the same way that I am when I look at this list and go, good God, where do I start? That's a lot of information. If I don't need that information, how do I find the information I do need? How well is this all organized? So I'm going to simplify it for all of you. I'm just going to simply say I've looked at a lot of these knowledge bases. So we're just going to do onboarding a new agent. Right? So what it does is it picks out keywords and it gives us 30 articles. And the funny thing is, there's a simple answer. There's an onboarding video that is part of this platform that is quite succinct. So you would think that the intelligence inside their search mechanism would be intelligent enough to say, this is the #1 response because it's the most watched video that's part of this CRM platform, but they don't do that. So I give this on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this whole entire section, its navigatability, like a 3. And the reason I'm giving it a 3, guys, is because here's what Follow Up Boss and all the other real estate tools that are out there has taught me. It's not so much how big is the lesson, how complex is the lesson, how detailed is the lesson. It's more about how accessible is it and how fast can I learn, like the top 3 elements of that lesson. Real estate agents, as you well know, have that 5,000 things going on. Generally speaking, asking an agent to be an expert in a platform that their own company doesn't own or control is asking a lot. The only ones of you who will be reviewing this are probably brokers or agents who are being told by their team leads they have to know the platform. And on a scale of 1 to 10, that's about a 4 in terms of your investment as an agent. All right, moving on, because this is already going to be a long video. Just a quick comparison for all of you between my original video in 2020 and this video. So I will say this is probably one of the most visible signs of massive upgrades over the last 5 years that I've been able to find. And that includes, have I read all of these notes? No, I have not. Do I know what's a part of every single new release? No, I don't. I do know that when I originally reviewed this platform in 2022, there was only 14 tabs. Okay, so these days there are a total of 11 additional tabs. The new tabs, the tabs that have been increased into, okay, so account information is the same, site layout changes is now a tab, dialer settings is now a tab, automations is now a tab, mass emails are now a tab, managed lead sources is new, reporting lead by source is new, managed tracking links is new, integrations is old, accountability dashboard is old. I remember actually looking at that. Agent reporting is old, dialer dashboard is old, dialer billing detail is new, contact templates new, MLS feeds, autoresponders, property settings, sold data. So all of that is new, all right, over where it was at in 2020. Now, this is a lot of stuff, guys, you know, as I'm sure you're seeing. And Sierra Interactive was already a platform that required that effectively your average broker should probably have somebody on staff handling this little bit of technology because it's big, it's fast, it's complicated, just like Sync and a lot of the other systems that are out there. So if you can find somebody who kind of gets off on this stuff, you really do want to put them in there. However, for all the rest of you, once again, I'm just going to do my best to make it so you can use this one video as a frame of reference, and I, for this exact moment, can be a technology expert for you. All right, so skip past these sections if they don't interest you. Global site settings, that is an old feature that we are taking another look at, okay? So some of this will be blurred out. On a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of usability, once again, this section gets about the same score that it did all those years ago. Unfortunately, though, when I did that review 5 years ago, I was comparing this platform against Boomtown. Now, Boomtown has been acquisitioned by KV Core, Bold Trails, or whatever they want to call themselves. There's another company out there that has acquired them. Now, you can do a lot of control over agent usage of the platform. This tool does not address the #1 challenge that all brokers have, which is actually getting their users to use the platform. And you have a hole in the marketplace that is not being talked about here. This tool would only make sense for the price. If you're a single agent, you're trying to find a website and like a tool, the only thing that makes sense is if you are a master level telesales expert, in which case Sierra Interactive can, like 10 to 20 years worth of experience is what I would guess at. There's some young, really aggressive salespeople out there that are like 3 years. And why do I say that? Well, everything that's on this dashboard that you're looking at right here is control over agents. You got to get your agents to actually call. That would be easy to do if it was 20 years ago and all your agents were in the same office and you had a very diligent sales leader there, making sure that they were actually doing all their contacts and reconnects and working every lead and doing also from the desk on the phone. The world has changed. A lot of offices are remote or semi-remote. All the agents that I know that are over 5 years experience rarely work from an office, like an actual physical brokerage office. They have a desk someplace probably, but they don't necessarily go to it very often. There are exceptions. All right. Now, this is an interesting feature, and it's new. Registration requirement can be changed based on sourced traffic. That is super cool. I haven't seen that before. It is whether or not it's effective. The only way I would know how to be able to address this: require on all listings, require on non-featured listings, suggest registration. Now, the way that I utilize registration is definitely suggesting, never forcing. But that's not a hard and fast rule. If you're trying to feed a sales force of 200 or 300 people or 2,000 or 3,000 people, oftentimes it's required to force registration because you're sifting through massive numbers and you know that you're going to lose some people who aren't going to like the process, but you need to get as much information as possible to turn over to a very extremely large sales force. Most people that have built that kind of sales force up in real estate have strong sales leadership in the market that we are in. All of you already know this. If you're a broker, the market's becoming more fractured. Competition for real estate agents of almost every caliber is increasing and intensifying, especially with the inception of all these virtual and digital brokers like Real and EXP, and they're just the tip of the cake these days. So registration on all of the traffic, not required, required on all listings, required on non-featured listings, suggest registration. Registration settings, photo gating on search. Now, this could be an extremely powerful lead generation mechanism. Photo gating on search results for pay-per-click traffic. This right here is what I use for lead generation. I've used it for over 17 years inside real estate because I was using it before I started InboundREM. Yeah, it might be 17 years. Since almost the very first month I set foot in Agent Image when I was actually still in training, I started to recognize that photo gating was probably the best way to get leads from people looking at real estate properties. I've used it ever since. I use it at InboundREM. It's incredibly effective. The fact that they added it here in Sierra Interactive is a serious nod to the idea that they've got their eye on lead generation. I find it to be a very, very good feature. Social registration settings, also pretty cool. Probably could be more diversified, but at the same time, the fact that they have this, they have the ability in here, this is a lot of detail creating around lead generation to make it easy and click some buttons. The only con, if there even is one, they put this all on the same dashboard. You got to read through it, you got to figure it out. I would guess, if I had to guess, based on the hard to use nature of their knowledge base, the fact that their customer service is not great, and it's hard to get a hold of any real live human being anywhere, then this becomes hard to use. It's not that it's not good, it's that it's just difficult to use. You can get very little clarification. You're gonna have to experiment with all of this stuff. If you have any questions, you just got to figure it out on your own, most likely. Some of you may have contacts over there at Sierra Interactive that didn't get removed when the company got acquired by ASG. Great, use them. Remember, my skill set is SEO. So global site meta tags are fine. Meta keywords are fine. Meta description are fine. There's nothing wrong with this. Global site tags are fine. Anybody that knows a lot about SEO will understand that global site tags are just a start that usually you got to go through page by page. But this tool does have some ability to do that. As an SEO tool, well, we'll get into that later. So that's the Edit Global Site Settings review for Sierra Interactive. All right, Sierra Interactive's site layout settings is what I'm looking at. I skipped over account contact info. It's pretty basic, has basic branding. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 5 because it's pretty standard too. You could do more with it, they don't. But at the same time, it does all the things that you'd expect from that kind of section. Site layout is also much in that same category. There was one thing that I thought was cool. This display logos and footers and headers is fine. It is a form of customization that you would kind of expect your provider to do, but since this is very much a platform that is not doing a lot of customization for you, you have to understand as a person who owns this system, you are going to have to, again, to get anything even close to remotely like top performance out of Sierra Interactive, you're going to have to become an expert level user, and you're going to have to do so mostly on your own, in my opinion. All right, but there was something cool in here, and I did want to show it to you, is that one of the strengths of Sierra Interactive 5 years ago when I reviewed them was that they had a lot of native integrations. Now, I haven't re-reviewed that native integrations list yet, but I'm going to tell you that I can already see that right here, there's a fellow hero section, which means, and a fellow free marketing analysis, which does mean that they've stepped up their game in inside some of their integrations. It appears you have the ability to really do some cool integrations with outside services. But you probably have to check that list and see who's on it. And you have to understand very clearly what you're trying to do. Fellow is a great lead generation tool. And I think in the case of the account that I am using here, it generates something like 20 or 30 extra inquiries, maybe even more per month. All right, here's my review of the call recording section for Sierra Interactive. I'm going to say this. I think that ultimately they're ahead of the game. There are certainly pros and cons. And for those of you that don't know, my actual direct experience is 20 years in the call center business. I have a lot of experience and a lot to say about these kinds of subjects. So if those of you are looking at these, trying to figure out best practices, this is the segment of the video for you. All right. Each state has separate laws governing the recording of phone calls. This allows you to enable something that is automated, that at the beginning of the call, intros, hey, we're going to record the call. By proceeding with the call, you're consenting. Now, this would be enabled on cold calls, and sometimes agents are going to push back against you, the owner of the company. I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend, regardless of what your agents feel, that you enable both call recording and the announcement that the call is being recorded. Okay? Strongly. All right. Caller ID. You can put your ID there or not. This particular instance says no. It just depends on what kind of business you're running. If you are doing a massive cold calling campaign or fairly low warmth, low knowledge person receiving any kind of message from you, no, you probably don't put a caller ID there. However, if you are more like an inbound marketer like I am, you always put your phone number or caller ID there because it is more likely that people pick up if they know it's you. All right, branded caller ID. Super duper love this. Branded caller ID is where you can also create a caller ID using this piece of technology. It's actually using a feature that Twilio has. It's super cool. Strongly endorse it if you are deep into phone calling. This is a vanity thing, and it can be effective for those of you running really well-oiled sales machines with a lot of people that are supporting these efforts, okay? Because a branded caller ID could be like your next real estate agent or something like that. It could be really cool, but only if it matches the rest of your sales strategy. Other than that, it's probably just a detail you don't care about. All right. Agent access and permissions. This allows agents to turn the dialer on and off. Yes. Now, here's one thing that I absolutely don't recommend that is not true of this particular instance of a license, which is enable mass text messaging functionality. This is a license that has that enabled, except I would not do that. For those of you doing any sort of large agent sales mechanics and you are not directly close to all of your agents, this is a bad idea. Even if you are close to your agents, let's put it this way. If there's any shared overlap in leads whatsoever, there probably isn't, but there could be for some of you. You do not want mass email text messages coming out multiple times from the same organization, ever, ever. The Democratic National Convention lost my support because I get way too many text messages, way too many. So just, decide for yourself if you think that that piece of information resonates with you. So please just take this with a grain of salt. I wouldn't do this. It's not to say you shouldn't. It's just I wouldn't. Allow agent level users to send mass text messages. Again, same thing. This is the limit. That's really cool. The limit is pretty high. It's 1,000. All of this means that basically the call recording feature like this, all these options with Sierra Interactive put it way ahead of most other all-in-one platforms. It doesn't put it ahead of every single platform, My use of HubSpot has a lot of features that this does not, but HubSpot is way more expensive. And when I say way more expensive, you should be paying about $500 a month or somewhere in that neighborhood for your license. HubSpot starts at $50. But when you enable their marketing and their other tools, it goes up to about $800. So if I was using all of these features in HubSpot and making it comparable to Sierra Interactive, it would probably be $300 more a month. That's why I'm saying, hey, it's more expensive. The basic HubSpot license is far cheaper than this by 10 times. So that's why I'm doing this detailed review. CRMs are just mountains of detail work, and most people get so frustrated and lost in the actual process of reviewing these things, they just give up. Even I didn't want to do another review like in this series of tools, because to be comprehensive, they're going to be hours long, and it's going to take me 40, 50, 60 hours just to refresh myself in every single one of these details. Anyway, this has been the Agent Access Permissions review and the call recording review for Sierra Interactive. Now, the license that I'm using is a top real estate broker, top 0.05%. Certainly in both knowledge, application, results, they dominate a local market. They beat Trulia and Zillow in the ranking game. They get about 10% of the market by themselves. So I consider them to be an expert user. So when you look at that and you go, here's the manage automation section, it's for Sierra Interactive. And you've got this really experienced professional and they've managed to use it 500 times in what is likely 5 years, okay, for certain types of activities, call tag, showing request, info request. I'm not saying that this isn't good. It is, because maybe that's 500 times you don't have to spend 5 minutes doing something. But when you look at these platforms, you oftentimes have things where they're buzzwords, and this is definitely one of them. Automations, buzzword. Anybody that is working inside the marketing space knows automation management is super hard to manage well. Even those people working in AI, which is 10 times better than our previous options, which was to write a series of messages or emails, assuming that we knew the mind of every prospect, and then create an automated chain that guided somebody down a loop. Now, 10 years ago, this was revolutionary. Today in 2025, it's irritating. If you're on the receiving end, I almost don't care what it is that you're doing. The only time that something might be interesting is if you can get an agent that can talk like a real human in the form of a call and response. I personally haven't seen it yet. I'm saying this to everyone while reviewing this. I'm sure that we're going to get there. I didn't think we would. I probably am on YouTube many times over saying I didn't think we'd get there. I think we'll get there. I haven't seen it yet, though. That's not to say it doesn't exist, but it has to be a natural language conversation. The agent has to be able to answer a lot of questions. My assumption would be probably need a very sophisticated large language model based tool on the other end, and probably that would cause a fairly decent amount of money to get all that going. In other words, much ado about nothing for the automation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the mass email section of Sierra Interactive. My review is going to be short and sweet. I have said this so many times. I've said this in whiteboard videos recently as an aside. Please hear me on this. Email is still an incredibly viable, high value form of marketing, which is exactly why you would never, ever, 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 ever use Sierra Interactive to do mass emails. I would have to create an entirely new video to try to explain all the cool things happening with email. They themselves in their own platform say you probably want to use a third-party provider. And I think that says everything that everybody here needs to know. You cannot use Sierra Interactive to do mass emails, and they do basic emails not nearly as well as your Gmail. Almost nobody's going to use this platform to do email. So let's just move on to the next subject. Here we are reviewing Sierra Interactive's lead sources feature, and now we start to get into the pieces of the platform where they really, really, really shine. Okay, I can't even go down the entire list on this account. There's a few hundred sources, lead sources. Getting your salespeople to acknowledge where they got their lead from or where the lead is coming from, or you as the owner of the site, if you're doing paid advertising, you can always identify what the lead source is. It's baked into the system. It is a very cool feature. I would give it even marks with Follow Up Boss. I actually still think that Follow Up Boss is a bit more intuitive. And so if I was to really put up against a wall, I'd probably say Follow Up Boss is slightly better. However, there are other strengths that CR Interactive brings to the table that are basically kind of like a blend of features. This is where we start to get into stuff that is really sexy about CR Interactive. Lead management, lead sources, how you distribute leads. I can go on and on. Everything related to leads, CR Interactive has always been strong. Whether they remain so, I'll be figuring out with you right now because I haven't looked in 5 years. But the last I heard, they were still pretty good at it. But we're not taking the time, so we'll figure it out. Now, once you have designated, or people that work for you have designated the leads, here's another cool thing. It's an automated report that says source reporting, all transactions. And for those of you who are agents, you should treat your business like a broker would, but I'm going to assume most of you don't. So I'm going to talk to the team leads and the brokers and the people that know this to be true. Once you get beyond the basics, like a skill set that involves calling and things like that, the next skill set that is the most valuable to any leader, to anybody who manages teams, is actually the ability to understand numbers in as easy a way as possible. It is oftentimes the analytics or numbers or data that influences your next decisions about strategy, teaching, refining tactics. I can go on and on. Anybody that's led a team and has been good at it for a long period of time knows exactly what I'm talking about. Who's your strongest closer? Who's your strongest, most effective closer? They could be two different things. Who's your hardest worker closer? Could be something different. Like who's taking the most calls, who has the highest close ratio, but did they take as many sales calls? Are they just taking 3 and then closing each one? I can go on and on. When you're a sales manager, these are the details that you need in order to make effective decisions and work with the people you need to work with. You can't do it without it. Your gut is not always right. So I love this feature. It's a cool feature. Okay. The lead sources, this is just another reporting mechanism. It's just another type of chart. But honestly, data in the way that it appears can be at times extremely relevant. Okay. And by the way, for those of you looking, I just want everybody to point this out. By far and away, largest lead source, Google Organic. When you're looking at websites that have had long-term efforts in this category, it's always going to be the same way. Highest lead count, highest close ratio. All right, we're going on to the next section, which is going to be manage tracking links. All right, managed tracking links is going to be a super short conversation. It's very, very, very cool and necessary. You can do the same thing with WordPress, and you do like Google Tag Managers. But this is just a screen that makes it all easy. Says put it here. You can hire a third-party source and say, I want all my tracking links logged in my CRM, and here's how you do that. And then you can track all the activity off certain properties using different marketing methods for those properties to try to identify what is the most effective way for you to spend money to promote listings or get leads for agents or whatever it's going to be. All right, but it's a cool feature. Scale of 1 to 10, probably like an 8 because most other platforms do not have this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about their integrations. Now, CR Interactive has increased their integrations to over 100, okay? And I'm not going to review all 100 integrations on CR Interactive. Here's what I'm going to say, and it's a blatant. I'm so sorry, but it's blatant. For those of you considering this platform, if you are savvy enough to understand what the general idea of integrations is and know you might need them on this particular website platform, you got to call me. You got to schedule a call with me. There's so many things just off this initial list. I'll tell you one thing that leaps out at me. BombBomb is a native integration, but guess what? Other tools such as Google have already made video integratable into emails. So there's plenty of other tools out there like Gmass and others that do the same thing as BombBomb for a ton less money. That's just an example, okay? And I love BombBomb. I love the founder. I love everything about BombBomb. I'm a big, huge fan, but nonetheless, it's just a fact that technology has caught up to them and somewhat made the service obsolete. And I can go on and on. So when you start looking at this stuff, You got to understand that if you're really looking at a lot of integrations on CRM Interactive, you should probably actually be looking at WordPress, which integrates easier, has thousands, not hundreds of integrations. And on top of everything else, if you're looking for a team website, we actually have one in beta. It's the tail end of a 3-year beta, and I can show you what that looks like. But you will get all of the same features and more, especially if you're already looking at integrations. The only value to CRM Interactive, it has some stuff baked into the platform, but you're really not getting much value any other time. They are now equally as complex of an environment as WordPress is. There are hundreds, if not thousands of hours that are going to have to go into not only learning the system, but then having everybody else learn it and train it. And that's what I meant by thousands, like other people's time connected into your time as well. So when you go mass email, they're using SendGrid, email to lead, they're using like 30 or 40 different options, okay? Tons. I don't even know every single person. I probably recognize about 75% on the list. So what you want to do is, if you are looking for best suggestions, best in class, that's why you'd want to call me and schedule a consultation, especially if you've got a large group of agents that you're moving over, nobody that you feel is an expert of maybe my caliber on your specific team, like consulting with you on the transfer. Because believe you me, for everybody listening to this episode or this YouTube video, you do not want to transfer a large team onto any platform without spending copious amounts of time going down every rabbit hole. You should get your list down to a few leaders, and then you should really, really, really be doing the deep dive that you are probably doing if you're even watching this segment of this video, because you have to understand, will all these integrations play well together? Are they going to serve the purpose that you need? On a scale of 1 to 10, how big is the priority? Like, do you use email in a mass way? Because in my last segment, I was talking about mass emails. Maybe you don't use them. So email becomes irrelevant, or the platform only becomes relevant from an agent to agent perspective. And certain types of follow-up communication can remain simple. And for those types of email communication, CR Interactive is quite good. It is where you want to start doing any ancillary marketing, including video, images, little response buttons, all these other things. You want to capture IP addresses. You want to do stuff with email. There are all sorts of third-party technologies that do much of that for you, making email, once again, very valuable but very specific. There is no platform, including HubSpot, that really do all of email very, very well. Usually the only people that do email really, really well are people that focus on just email. All right. Hopefully I've made my point. The same is true of much of this technology stack that you're looking at. Much. Okay? I have one last thing to say about integrations. Very few of these are worth even the time to research. Okay? Very few. And all of them would come down to what you're trying to accomplish. Most of these, like Dave Ramsey, Boost, Agent Image, these are email providers. IDX brokers, an IDX company. Yeah, they email, but they're vague. They're not email providers. So making this email to lead stuff, like, this is a bad designation for this entire list. I'm starting to repeat myself with CR Interactive. Yeah, it's cool that you can use all these things. I'll bet all of you are sitting here thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Sure, I could use them, but I don't even know what most of these things are. And I'm not going to go through and research all these. And thank God you won't, because most of these are irrelevant to the title that they're being put under. Okay? There's not one so far pure email person. Maybe this one. These aren't email people. Opcity is a pay performance platform. What they're doing here, what they really did, is they put a lot of IDX and lead generation companies in here. And they're basically, what they're telling you is that your IDX companies and lead generation companies can theoretically be integrated into CR Interactive, and that you could use CR Interactive as a home to all of your leads. Now, that is all very relevant, but the labeling on here is absolutely god awful. And that you're not going to get a hold of anybody to explain that. And I doubt you're going to go through all of this stuff. You wouldn't be on my video if you could find great stuff that CR Interactive had produced themselves telling you this information. So once again, their product is great. Their organizing of a very, very, very large product map is terrible. Like just terrible. Okay, so we're in the agent accountability section of the Sierra Interactive backend dashboard. This is a agent user license that we're looking at, but it's kind of weird. I have blended access. And this is a very, very, very cool feature if you are a person that is managing a group of hunters, if you're working out of an office, if you're working with an experienced and stable sales team that you know well. This allows you to scorecard their actual actions and productivity. I've used stuff like this hundreds of times inside my career, but usually it is only effective with really diligent agents or circumstances in which you can really hold something over an agent's head. Like you've got the carrot and stick manage of motivation. The larger the sales team, the more likely it is. I'm not saying it's 100% guaranteed, but the more likely it is that you've got at least some sticks in place. Now, if you're using the mechanism of paying anybody a salary, which 99% of people who recruit in real estate are not, then that makes all of this very, very hard because you can't say, get on the phone, so on and so forth, I'm paying you a salary. In this particular case, the broker in question actually did pay salaries. One of the very, very small handful of people in the country that did that, which meant that he did have a stick. He could say, come into the office, do this, do that. This is part of your job. Performance and expectation. When somebody is a commission-only salesperson, agent accountability dashboards really mean very little. So what am I really saying here? I'm letting all of you know that may or may not have like a Sierra Interactive website. Maybe you're thinking of getting an agent, a Sierra Interactive website. Agent accountability dashboards really may sound cool, but it really depends very heavily on what your internal structure is about whether or not anybody's ever going to use this thing. So in the case of commission-only sales teams, forget it even exists. In the case of you're the 1%, you have people on salary, you have a way to require performance metrics. This is super cool, super necessary, and one of the few systems that comes with it baked in. All right, Follow Up Boss has a similar dashboard. A lot of other systems don't. So I just want to be clear. It's not that there's no systems, but the all-in-one CRM systems that are similar to this, it is one of the few. All right, on to the next thing. Next thing being closely related. This is an agent reporting dashboard, which once again, for those of you who haven't heard me say it 50 times in the video, it's this here interactive element. And we're reviewing that dashboard specifically and in terms of, and I had to blur out the names of the agents. So you're going to see that the average time to lead, assign collaborator, leads not touch, calls text. Again, this feature is super cool. However, sadly, it's not necessarily super cool for most real estate brokers, agents, and teams. And why do I say that? Same reason as I did in the last section, but if you didn't catch the last section, it's because many, if not most, real estate agents are on some form of performance-based pay. That just means that while the only time you can insist on performance, like stuff like this, is if you are handing them leads that you generated. Even this team, yeah, he self-generates leads. He gets about 50 a month. He's got 10 agents, though. That means every agent gets 5 leads or so. So what that translates into is 1 lead a week. You're not going to get these guys to report the other 80% of effort they're taking unless you have an extraordinary relationship with them. Why? Because it's extra steps. Why bother? I wouldn't. Most people wouldn't. So you're going to have a hard time getting usage out of a lot of these segments on this CRM. So is it a cool segment? Yeah, I give it a, for what it is, I give it an 8 or 9. Yay! But do I think you could use it? Do I think almost anybody could use it in the real estate space? Very few. 5% maybe. All right, so here comes another really weird sticky wicket. It's the dialer dashboard for Sierra Interactive. And this particular dial dashboard with the names of the agents blurred out is going to have no activity on it. And why is that? Because dialer dashboards have to be logged into and you have to record your calls through the platform. Now, recording calls through a platform is extra steps for the people making those calls. The benefit is mostly for the company, the people that own the company. Now, if you have a salaried team or contracted team, anybody who you're paying upfront to do calls, then you should be tracking them and you can track them. And this is not probably the best tool to do that, but it is a tool to do it with if you're trying to get all of your data centralized into a single place. So what does that mean? Like for those of you using people like Robert Hatch and the 1,000 other companies that have sprung up that all do third-party calling, the reason that they do third-party calling is because they have their own internal tools that are all far better than this. They're never ever going to use your tool, so forget about it. If you're using somebody that you hired, and this would be an argument for self-hiring a team, okay? The team would be required to use your tools. If consolidated data, again, if you're an experienced marketer or trying to become an experienced marketer and you're willing to, you've got the resources to make some failures on your way to ultimate success, you might consider paying an external team that you control to use the tools you want. You might consider using this one only if you're centralizing your data. And then and only then does all of this make sense. Other than that, the Dialer dashboard will probably not be used by 90% of the people that own this here interactive platform. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 3. All right, thanks. On to the next subject. Okay, another thing about the dialer plan in general, which I just realized, okay, which adds an element of detail. This is dialer billing detail, and I just logged into it right now. And when I did the review 5 years ago, it wasn't there. I think there was an added option. I may have mentioned something, but I had forgotten. Now I'm remembering. CRM Interactive is no doubt acting as an affiliate. This is a profit center for them. What does that mean to you? That means that they do quote you pricing and have elements of this and are going to show you how much they're billing you. So there is if I had gone back and understood right up front that there was an additional cost not included with your platform fees and that those additional costs would be like $25 per 1,000 minutes or per month or $15 per 1,000 text messages, that adds a different spend to every single segment of the platform that I reviewed. However, I am low on time. I'm already hours into this and I am not going to go back and add or change those previous recorded segments. You're going to get them as they were dropped. So ultimately, this looks like something like Twilio pricing with a little spit on it. So what does that mean? That just means that if you do use this platform, they are going to make money from you twice, one for the service fee, one for any extra usage of this sort. You know what? Give me 1 second. I'm gonna review pricing and make some additional comments. Okay, so some additional comments here so that you guys don't have to do the research I just did. It would appear that this pricing is Twilio pricing plus about 100%. So double Twilio pricing for these elements, all so that you can get them into the platform, which now makes sense to me why I've heard of so few people using CRM Interactive as an actual dialer. If I just remembered all this, I would understand that there is another reason beyond the ones I've already mentioned about why so few people use this system as a dialer, because you could just go to Twilio directly, use them as a dialer, and save 50%. You have to ask yourself these kinds of questions. But this does play well into something else I said. You really, 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 really need to go down every single rabbit hole, as odious and painful as it is, because those of you who might be watching this, a few of you might have a few hundred or a few thousand agents. Now, if you're bringing them into the office and you've somehow got a mechanism for them to call, and you were thinking we're going to use this thing as a dialer, well, this whole little segment right here probably just changed your entire thought process. And if it didn't, then all the more power to you. All right, on to the next section. Section is called Mass Contact Templates. This client has been with him for 7 years, never used it. And for all the reasons that I already said, mass contact templates are email, so I'm not going to cover this any more than this one little section. Again, this is the Manage Contact Template section of CRM Interactive. I say that because we're going to break these all into shorts this time around and use them probably into perpetuity, because this hasn't changed in the 5 years since I reviewed this last, and I don't think it's changed in the 7 years since I reviewed CRM Interactive the first time. All right, so this is a brand new segment that is super cool, and the only reason that I know like I have some background data on this is because the people that do a lot with MLS feed settings and integrate features that have to do with lenders and financial transaction backend stuff is Sync. Sync's skill is dealing with multiple lenders and doing things from, like, they focus on mechanics that are really only going to come up from less than 1% of the world at large. But when for that 1%, it makes Sync the only platform that they want to do business with, because there are all sorts of data points that you want to address when you start talking about mass lead collection, like 4 different people contributing money, for instance, to make a lead campaign happen on the advertising side, then having those leads somehow filtered and distributed to different teams simultaneously, all out of the same platform. Stuff like that, Sync is, or it used to be, I haven't reviewed it in a while, but it used to be pretty good at that. Now, this is stuff like that, except it's related more to feeds and data that comes in from those feeds, okay? Default search map pack, fallback results, like this is the mileage, the radius, that could be relevant for those of you who might be trying to do some kind of hyperlocal marketing. Residential, commercial property type, limited list, not great. Contact information, great, gotta edit something out on this page. Search tools, kind of cool. Just different calls to action as part of the search experience. You can see over here what they meant with that. Okay, it's just adding different elements to the agent information. Featured lender integration. It depends on how robust this is. Not very robust, but still kind of cool. Similar listing criteria is up. Nope, don't want to go to this. Metadata. Okay. Yes. Whoops. Meta tags. Yes. Sorry. All right. Configure variables. This is cool. It just means that I can SEO. I can add an SEO element to an individual featured listing, okay, on the website. This could be relevant. It really just depends on what kind of real estate you're doing. For anybody who's trying to do like a very bespoke real estate business, this feature becomes relevant. But unfortunately, Sierra Interactive is not known for appealing to the bespoke real estate agent or broker, and they don't get a lot of individual users. I do. So I get individual users that are independents historically. I am building a product so that I get more of the teams and stuff like that. That's the last segment of the beta that I just mentioned. Or I mentioned a while ago. MLS data names, that's cool. That can deal well with compliance. So it's a nasty little detail that oftentimes becomes a high priority at a certain time. Property listing detail SEO. As with most things related to content management, Sierra Interactive is terrible. Not even top 3%. Like, they're not. Let me rephrase. There are like 10 big platforms. I wouldn't give strong scores to content management. Like, Sierra Interactive would be nowhere near the top of that list. If you're worried, if you're a person that interested in content on listings or any other detail, you'll have to figure out and do tons of workarounds, which is true of this client, who is soon leaving this platform for one of this reason among many others. All right. Here we go. MLS feed settings, scale of 1 to 10 for this particular section. It's probably a 6. It is cool that they took a stab at this. It wasn't there when I looked at the system in 2020. I give them props for having integrated a lot of this in. It all looks pretty basic, and some of it not sufficient to what the needs would be of the average agent or broker. All right, autoresponders. This is Sierra Interactive autoresponders. This drops content in various ways. No text messages. It's old. This client has it turned off. I imagine that you'll have it turned off as well. Because it's not that it wasn't cool 10, 15 years ago. It was, but this is only allowing you to pre-type in auto responses to certain types of input. And that is really a mechanic that, like, if you send back something that sounds slightly off in today's world, who knows what the end receiver of that message is going to be, but they're probably going to say, at a minimum, they're going to think it's AI or automated. And a maximum, they're going to be disappointed with the response. So I give this a 2, okay? All right, seller lead sites. Okay, this is other websites. Let's see what you're able to do here. It just allows you to list sites that might be third-party referral sites, stuff like that. Obviously, it's very underutilized here. I am trying, and seller lead sites, which are could be connected to tools like Fellow and or could be independent lead like generation operations. As long as I've been in this business, trying to get sellers to contact you has been one of the number one games of all real estate agents. When it comes to paid searches, all those wholesalers and flippers and things like that, they're all paying a bucket load of money, 5 to 10 times the national average on the top real estate searches. So if you think that your real estate for sale in searches are expensive, wait until you try to do selling my blank home, selling my home fast in city name. Like these searches are usually 9 times more expensive than the most expensive residential real estate search. So while I love these strategies, I love the landing pages, you are always up against the strongest winds in terms of competition. It's oftentimes even worse than trying to compete in the mortgage section of the real estate business. So, but cool feature. I just don't know how many people would use it. But cool feature. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's give it a 7. It's unique, so maybe even higher. Manage single property sites. For those of you who are doing like a very specific kind of marketing, which again, this kind of website and this kind of business is not focused on that. You get people who are building individual property sites that really want to go ham on this in the luxury space. Like when you have a single property and it's going to be 60K on the commission side, it makes all the sense in the world to do a mass, super deep advertising campaign, including a single property website that you want to publish. Now, these days, there are so many. Hold on, I'll give you a list of a few. This request is so common among providers. When I went to find out who are the best single property websites, the first two on the list, of course, are Luxury Presence and Agent Image. They both have products designed for this, and then you have Rella, Listings Unlimited, Cribflyer, and Property Site Solutions, who are all dedicated single property generators. And there's many more that just do nothing but single property websites. So using commenting on or doing anything other than maybe adding a URL here for trackability purposes is probably unlikely. Do you really want to put it in your Share Interactive platform? It really just depends. I think that when I reviewed this 5 years ago, it was already edging away from being like it was still a really good centralized platform, but I still didn't think it was doing the all-in-one job very well. Unfortunately, over the last 5 years, I'm going to say that so far, like doing this deep granular dive is making me realize Share Interactive is really innovated in very few ways. And they've just made they built the platform up in a haphazard way and made it very, very confusing to try to figure out how to steer it, even if you wanted to. All right. Let's go to 301 Redirect Tool, which is an SEO feature. For those of you that don't know, 301 Redirects allow you to take one page and direct it to another. It's a tactic that we use frequently inside the SEO business because sometimes you want to relabel something, rename something. That they have it on here is cool. Manage 301 redirects. The fact that they're competing against WordPress and tools like Yoast that have this native functionality built in 10 times better. And sometimes they do it, they kind of do some of the work for you in an automated way, and it's moving more and more in that direction. Unfortunately, Share Interactive is going to have a hard time keeping up with that kind of innovation because with the WordPress world, you're dealing with plugins. You're not trying to update an entire platform. You're just trying to update a little teeny tiny kernel of performance. So whoever's responsible for that, because the vendors and entrepreneurs that work inside the WordPress ecosystem are all competing against each other. They want you to use their plugin. So it makes sense why would somebody take this one little feature and then try to compete against other people? Well, it's because of the way that WordPress was built and the way it was built up. And I like the way it was built up because you now say, I could probably find a vendor that just created a plugin just for 301 redirects as it relates to SEO and making sure that it's all native, like all the changes happen one place to the next. And maybe they even save a copy of the old page, the old destination URL, and then put it in a file for you automatically and just do all this different stuff. These guys are going to have a hard time keeping up. I do like the export button. The idea here is this. You put all of your sold data in here and you could export this and use it for other forms of filtered marketing. It depends on how you have to record this data about whether or not it's useful or not. It depends on how easy it is to manage. If this is correct, this particular instance, we have 161,000 forms of data in here that could theoretically be exported, and you'd have a quick list of everybody we've ever done business with, which is great. All right. So anyway, it's a cool section. It really just depends on how you use it. For those of you who are marketing people, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't already have something in place that is managing your sold data or automatically extrapolating and extracting your sold data so that you can use it in very specific marketing efforts, because for those of you that don't know, your best clients are your past clients. Okay, always. There's no exception to that. I've been in sales my whole entire life. And your best clients are your past clients. If you're doing a good job running a company or doing a good job managing a team or doing a good job selling, your best customers are your past customers. So what you do is you always want to keep track of them. You always want to talk to them. These days, lists like this can be used for remarketing and retargeting campaigns. They can be used for building out Facebook pages. They can be used for building out Facebook groups. I cannot begin to tell you what the value of a list like this is. So if you don't automatically collect one, then this might be an incredibly strong feature for you. It just depends on where you're at with your marketing journey. All right. Okay, so this is one of those really funky things that is really difficult to explain to people, okay? Because here's the thing. This particular install, I recently exported, I don't remember how much it was, like 20 or 30,000 names and data sets. And no surprise, we were not able to use any of it, because the groups, the data groups that you look for, which anybody who is basically a developer understands what other developers are looking for when they're using XLL, spreadsheets, basically. I'm just gonna simplify it and say it. Spreadsheets, all right? They're downloading data in a group. Well, if somebody decides to say that they're not going to give you a certain data group that could be really important, like they'll give you the first name but not the last, as an example of a customer. If you have 25,000 records, you'll quickly understand that it's not really helpful to get a list of 9 Roberts. Okay, it's much more helpful to get first and last name, and for organization, categorization, you need it. The same thing is true of many other pieces of data. Like you can submit an address, you can have an address field, but you can also say, for instance, that the number of the house is removed and the street is kept there. Now, I am not going to reveal like trade secrets. I'm just going to say this. Sierra Interactive abbreviates their data and makes it unusable when you export it to the vast majority of people that would export it. It is not a usable data set. They are in a long list of real estate marketing providers that make it extremely difficult for you to get your data off their platform. You actually have to probably hire somebody that understands how to do this, what they need and what they look for, in order to even get the data in the first place in a way in which, for instance, you could transfer it into another CRM. That's what Sierra Interactive is trying to avoid. If all you were doing was just trying to look at the data, Sierra Interactive will give you enough to make that activity possible. But if you're trying to transfer it into another CRM in totality and get it operational, they're not giving you what you need. That just is another sneaky way that providers like Sierra Interactive lock you into their platform. When I say this, I hope that all of you will hear me. I'm in 1,000 different places telling you the following. You need to own your marketing to the degree that you're able. You do not want to spend $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 or much more, like the client that I'm looking at has spent, in order to discover that you don't actually have full control over your data. Think about how crazy that is. What if the answer is you've spent millions and you still don't have control? Okay, you can sue them to get them to give you what you need. They'll just pretend ignorance until they're forced not to, or maybe they really don't know, which is even worse, I think. So that's just a footnote here in this section. Okay, other than that, it's fine. There was a single request and I think the action was taken. We just didn't get what was usable. So you'll get action, but not what you probably need if you're asking in the first place. This is Sierra Interactive reporting section of their website. This is a section of an element they used to lead in. You're not going to have any tracked emails. You're probably not going to have any calls or texts because of the data cost, the cost of those activities, as I mentioned before. So all of this is going to be blank. Some of these graphs and charts are really cool where it's just dividing up where your leads were produced from. That is still a thing that CR Interactive is probably good for. I'm gonna have to blink most of this out. Now leads, this is a section that they are historically known for. Lead dashboard, lead tags, add lead routing. So let's just get into it. So this whole segment of the review video right now is going to be talking about leads, which theoretically is one of those places that CR Interactive is strong. Lead management, looking at how leads are worked, looking who you send leads to, and I'm probably going to blink out so much of these screens. Okay, you get phone number, how many visits, listings, agent, tasks, activities assigned now. So it is it is a decent lead categoric system. Honestly, I haven't looked at this in a while, and right now on this screen, I would say that Follow Up Boss is better. Okay, so in terms of what you see and what you track at, this is Follow Up Boss that you're looking at right here. So here we are. You've got where the lead source was. The lead source is not included under in CR Interactive, which is a big fail. Everything else appears to be the same, including there's a little bit more no, everything else is the same, okay, between these two screens, exactly the same. All right, so leads 100% identical, okay. There's this bulk edit feature here. There is the ability to tag leads a little bit more robustly inside Follow Up Boss. There's the ability to add and subtract columns, which you cannot do here in Follow Up Boss. You've got some edit smart filters here. Here's filters. And once again, the reason that Follow Up Boss always has been and probably always will be the leader in this space is they always do incredibly good tutorials. It is the most usable platform by miles in the real estate space. And the original owners did that. I doubt they're doing much more with it anymore because they got bought by Zillow. But what they had already done, you can look at this. Look at the detailed nature of this. New list. It's deep, it's picture by picture, taking you step by step all the way through the function. I've looked at this so many times. As long as they didn't take it out of Follow Up Boss or change the platform to the point it would be ineffective, they're going to remain the leader in a platform that is actually usable inside the real estate space, mostly because somebody came up with the idea of breaking down every step and every feature into a minute. Like a minute-long video, a minute-long thing. So if you have a question, you can usually get answered in under a minute on Follow Up Boss. Taking away performance, extremely complex marketing needs, large, super large teams, and other very specific niche needs, Follow Up Boss tends to be the best tool on the marketplace. I suspect that will change because I think that like most acquisition companies, they're going to stop developing it and they're probably going to fall behind eventually, but they were way out ahead, so they got a little ways to go. All right, so we go back to managing leads. So here we are, we're getting back to CR Interactive now, and we can talk about drip campaigns. That is where you send automated messages. There is no drip campaigns. Very few people are going to create it out of here. They don't call drip campaigns in Follow Up Boss. They usually call it automations or action plans. Okay. Action plans is a term that HubSpot actually created and many people followed along. An action plan could be a series of emails or actions such as this delivered over time. And you'll notice that one of the things that once again that Follow Up Boss has done and Ylopo has done is there's a shared documents community inside Follow Up Boss that is not present in CR Interactive. That shared documents element allows you to automatically set up your drips. In other words, there's stuff that you can pull from without having to customize it, all in Follow Up Boss. Now, is it stuff that you should use? Probably not, but it's a lot better than trying to create it from scratch. This is an antiquated, super old feature, and if a CR Interactive salesperson was wise, they wouldn't even mention it to you. E-alerts. Let's see here. I do not know what this is. It's probably a notification when you get a lead would be my thought. Whatever it is, it doesn't want to load. I'm looking on out of the screen at all the integrations for follow-up boss. Honestly, I'm going to have to go back and look at my last long form review for follow-up boss, the same way that I'm doing with CR Interactive, because I do not recollect all the details. Let's see if the add lead section loads a little faster. It does. Completely standard. Okay, add leads, completely standard. Lead routing. This should be the place. And action plans was there too, now that I looked at it. Okay, so they do have action plans. All right. I mean, comparatively to all the lead routing tools that are out there, I'm going to say that this is sufficient. I don't feel overly whelmed with the abilities, but I mean, it's probably sufficient. It's probably, hold on a second here. Let's check this out. New rules. Now this I like a lot. Okay, so it turns out that there's a slight bit more ability to customize when you click the new rules button. So once again, we come back to, if you're an expert user of CRMs, have somebody like me on staff or somebody you're going to just pay a bucket load of money, a third-party provider, somebody that you get off Upwork who could come in here and you can basically give all of your instructions to verbally, and then they can come into this tool and figure it out for you, like how to get your preferred method of lead routing done. And is that doable in CR Interactive? Because most likely you will end up spending a lot of time. Even though I understand what I'm looking at, it would take me a while to set this up, test it, see if it worked the way I wanted it to work, and then implement it, like firmly implement it, do the sales meetings, tell everybody how it's going to work, so on and so forth. All of you running teams know exactly what I'm talking about. So maybe a 6. Honestly, I haven't looked at all the lead routing tools specifically, like 5 Street. I've had very limited exposure to them. So I'm probably going to have to really review those. I think maybe it's an unfair 6. Because I can't list anything better except maybe follow-up boss. Who knows? Maybe it's between 6 and 8, just depending on what's out there, which I haven't seen yet. All right, action plans, market updates. Okay, so this is leads, right? Are you going to send a market update? Action plan. Okay, new action plan. You label the action plan. You go to next. Okay, so I would say a few years ago, once again, this was, best in class, or at least like up there, maybe 5, 6 years ago when I first reviewed the platform. It was certainly decent. Action plan settings. But basically what it says, you can customize or create like a drip. Now, how many steps or how many phases of this drip, like HubSpot allows me to do kind of unlimited. I think my longest action plan is 12 months. And Follow Up Boss does the same. Does this tool do the same? I don't think so. I haven't been able to find it. Somebody else will have to do a deeper dive and let me know someplace in the comments of this video if indeed they do it or not. But I'm just telling you, I don't think they do. So that puts them behind everybody else and kind of makes it like, why would you bother? Because it puts you pretty far behind everybody else. All right, market updates. All right, this is going to be another one of those dashboards that takes forever to load. Let's do save searches. Okay. Save searches are cool and they're used to build a website out. So they give you their save searches, filtered searches, all the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. And big filtered search sites like CR Interactive, like when they look like this, when you are in here and you're doing the whole idea of the website is you're going to go into a neighborhood and find all the homes just in that one neighborhood listed on the page. It creates what's called a filtered search experience. It's just where you really target all your searches and get them all up on the page. This is one of my beta sites, so please just ignore the fact that it's not completely built out. But the idea is simple. You get all the estates searches on this page, and then in theory, if somebody liked the search experience enough, they would register with your site, so on and so forth. Okay, listings, featured listings, manual listings, reverse prospecting. Not going to lie, I had to look that one up. This is definitely a new feature and something really cool. So reverse prospecting is a real estate strategy, and I'm basically just reading off Google, all right? Full transparency. is a real estate strategy where a listing agent identifies potential buyers for a property by searching the multiple listing service for buyers agents whose clients have saved searches that match the listing. It's a pretty cool concept. Never spoken to anybody about using this strategy, never used it myself. I understand. I thought it was going to be about circle prospecting, something that Ricky Carruth talks about a lot. Turns out it's different. I love the idea. I would imagine that it's limited by how robust your own MLS is, but for people like me or that have MLS.com or people like my client Brett that have HAR, I have no doubt that you could go freaking crazy with this strategy. All right, so I like the fact that they've listed it, and I like the fact that they made me do a little work. I learned something new today. That's rare. So in this space, so super happy about that. All right, content pages, testimonials. So let's just see what the testimonial section is. This has always been a limited feature on here. It's terrible, terrible font. Looks like it was made back in the 80s or the 90s, back when, and that was a long time ago. For those of you who are not tracking along, the 90s was 30 years ago. All right, these are testimonials, change testimonial. You never want to do it this way, ladies and gentlemen. You want to import testimonials like through a shared widget, like on WordPress and things like that. You want to get them directly from the platforms that they're coming from, or at a minimum, you want to install a link inside the design. None of these things are possible with Sierra Interactive. This client, and all things related to client content, Sierra Interactive remains a mile behind. And since this is my absolute, I tend to really quickly go through this. Like, I'm just like, they're just not good. And everybody's like, well, why? Why? Okay, well, number one, you're still using like a WYSIWYG that's a content entry system that is from, again, like the 90s. So first of all, it's so out of style and out of school that I think only old WordPress doc people would be really comfortable with this particular interface. So number one, interface is antiquated. Number two, what you can do with this interface is extremely limited. Now, I'm not sure exactly how limited, but I want to say that we would have a hard time even attaching certain kinds of images and certain kinds of video. Now, whether I am right or whether I am wrong about that, here's what I know for certain. What Google looks for in search engines as it relates to content is constantly changing, but one thing is absolutely true, is that for searches that haven't yet been transitioned over to predominantly being served by AI, like this one, Tubac, the name of a city, a small one, but a city, and I had to make sure that I understood how search was being searched up, because I oftentimes don't granularly pick apart search results pages unless I really need to. And so this search is a perfect example though. So you've got your video up front on some of these accordion menus. You've got what would be called your traditional search results. So we did the search of the city name, that's it, nothing else. So number one is Tubac, okay? And then you get all these drop downs about Tubac, that's the city center. And then number two is Wikipedia. Number three is the visitor center in the area. And then you get another video carousel, making it two video carousel opportunities. And then you get number four. And number four is our client, Sally Roebling. And this is going to make my point. When you do a blog post, if you want it to rank for something, you must, number one, it must be multimedia. Have many different types of media in it. So we built this image out for the client. It's custom based on an image that they gave us. Then all these other images are either through our sources, like people that we use for content pages, or something similar to that, okay? And then the font has to be one of the 18 native fonts that Google reads well. I'm not saying they don't read other fonts, they do, but they only guarantee they're going to read a small handful, which most people don't know. That means that your page can go unread. If it goes unread, it goes unranked. Can't be more simple than that. You have to have lots of outbound links, which most likely Sierra Interactive allows for, seeing as how the number one well-trafficked website is built on Sierra Interactive, which is Ruby Home. But number two, and this is the part where it starts to get stickier, you must be able to add images like custom hand-graphed infographics. And then last but not least, and this is something Sierra Interactive absolutely positively doesn't do, you need all of these things in the same blog post. You also need the ability to do accordion menus. Why? Because these are taking a stab at directly getting ranked in the actual FAQs, which is a massive part of the Google algorithm now. It's like, it counts for like 38 to 58% of search. So saying that you're not going to do this means you are eliminating the possibility of 38 to 50% of your search possibilities. I'm going to give you one more real solid case. So while this isn't directly attributable to only filtered search, what's happening as we make the transition to AI and Google is putting links on the page a different way, which by the way, they're still putting about 10 results. So they're changing the way that people are experiencing search. Now here's a fascinating thing. I've had the same experience on my site. I didn't have a 75% drop, but he had a 75% drop in recognized keywords, but 6,000 additional people come into the site. All right, that's going to be true of everywhere. All right, and the people that do come into the site should continue to be more qualified. So please don't think I'm taking a poke at Ruby Home here, because I'm really not. I'm just using them as a demo to show you. And this is a CR Interactive website. For those people that don't know, it's the most popular CR Interactive website by traffic, by miles. There isn't a close second. Okay. This is it. This traffic gets more traffic by far. Look at this. I think they get more traffic than most brokerage sites, 66,000 visitors per month. So you're curious to know what you can do, go there, but you can't do filter searches, and likely the precipitous drop, the absolute massive drop, which is way more than, let's say, a site like mine, by percentages. Okay, so their percentage is 75%. I think that my percentage is 30%. Their traffic bump is 10%. So my drop is 50%. So I was wrong. My bad there. Not 75, but still significant, 50. My traffic increase, which is 9,000, was a traffic increase by 75%. Like I said, it's complicated. It's a diverse subject with lots of features, but there's one thing that is absolutely positively true. This is not a very good content manager. It's probably not going to, it barely works in the world today. You have to be an expert content person, which Tony, the guy that owns the Ruby Home site, is. And so he used to do it for a living. He's very, very good at using so many different incredibly advanced content strategies in order to get traffic. And he does so much work on his site. It is too bad that he locked himself into a site that is not going to really update their content management system. Let's go on to the blog. Blog posts, blog roles. So let's just take a look at this. This is a published blog post. We take a look at it. You've got your blog photo. You've got, this is what the post looks like. There's only one thing that these blogs do. It breaks it up into content pieces, which is an interesting thing. You can attach videos. How complicated it is to do this, I do not know. They're breaking up into the content areas. I hope that you're all understanding that this is a fairly complex way to write a blog post. Now, if you get used to it, I'm sure like any other tool, that it would be effective. Some things that this tool does very well. The adding of links into a blog post, like a live blog post that then connect into pages on the website, is incredibly effective at getting people to start searching on the site, going from a blog post. That is something that other vendors, myself included, struggle with, because at times, even though you put a link in, the links that you install in these posts tends to be, let me show you what I mean. So here's a blog post, we go into it, here's what it looks like live on the website. This would be the search case widget. So the way that the search widget is built is very, very in your face. And we really haven't done that work yet on our platform, which means that this one with its baked in search widget is probably better for getting people to search for properties on the website, combined with a really good search experience. Now, I have fixed a lot of that recently, but up until now it was not true. Okay, so just full transparency. These are cool features of the blog, and this is what a blog looks like. It's relatively decent, and if people aren't looking for anything overly exciting or sexy, it's going to work great. And some of the things that were built in here, charts and graphs that you could install on the blog, worked beautifully. Okay, you could also do a video on here, which means that most of the main things that you need could get onto the blog post. Only super duper extra credit stuff is not going to get here. Unfortunately for everybody, some of that super duper extra credit stuff is becoming more and more important, not the least of which is that some of the mobility features on some of these posts is not the best. So there's pros and cons. It does do its job. And I do not want anybody to think that it doesn't. It does. But it just probably depends on where your focus is. If you're a broker, this is still a great option, because you're probably not all focused on SEO, or are you getting in front of an additional 25% of keywords or whatever that number ends up being. So blogs, leads, users. Nothing surprising there, just list the people that are using on the site. So then we go to reporting. And this is where we're probably going to end the main thing, and then I'm going to do a summary. I'm going to end the video with a summary. Reporting is going to be limited by the tools they're using, and for reasons I already explained, having to do with the call management system and its cost, it's probably not going to be great. Agent reporting, in other words, reporting is not going to be good. Here's the CR Interactive summary. On the design side, their designs have not been updated in over 15 years. Not really. A long time ago, and I mean ages ago, I ran across this team called the Keene Brothers in Atlanta, Georgia. And they built out the best example that I've ever seen and continue to ever see on using CR Interactive. Now, I'm pretty sure they use design contractors to even make this happen. I do not think that they got this built directly by IDX broker. Some of the stuff that you see on it, though, is pretty gosh darn cool. Now, is it their number one site? No, because they have, unfortunately, it's just too much information, too poorly organized. I'm trying to think of a better way to say it, but I'm running out of steam here. I've been at this for many, many hours. So this right here is one of the best examples of a map I've ever seen designed, and it connects really well into something that these types of websites do well, which is all this filtered information listed in an organized way that you can click on, which still works as long as you're using it on not a mobile phone. These sites are not the best for mobile phones. They work. They're not exactly the best mobile experience or even close to it that you can find, but they're still quite functional. This site hasn't changed much in all the years I've looked at it. I do think that they've got some really cool things. So if you're looking for a good example of a CR Interactive website that's a little bit more different than some of their other installs, this would be a place I'd come look. The summary of it, though, is, guys, real estate has changed a lot. These old search experiences where we drive people in by search bars on the homepage, I don't know of many people applying that mechanic right out of the gate anymore. People have a much more sophisticated understanding of websites. When they use your website on their mobile phone, you really want it operating like an app to the greatest deal of your ability. And these old CR Interactive websites do not do that. They will never do that. I think that there is a mobile app that they built separate for the site, and that does that. I'm not seeing it promoted off the homepage. I'm sure it's here somewhere. I'm not seeing it. Wherever it is, it's here somewhere. And what that means for all of you is that there might be a workaround, but it's not as easy as just making the site work that way. So that's a con. For those of you running really big teams and, feeling like you have an older group of realtors or performers, people that have been in call center businesses for a while, they're past in their 30s or 40s, and you're looking for a product that will feel comfortable to them, CR Interactive is still a really good example. These days, you're probably going to want to look at either us or some other company. There's not that many companies doing really good work. It just depends on what your vertical is, what your focus is, though. If all you want is a functional search site, then Real Geek still does one, Playster still does one, and they do it for fairly inexpensive, but they don't touch the CRM. But 80% of this, from what I just reviewed, if you go back and look at all my reviews, I think 80% of it's unusable. Or unusable for most people. I would love to see your comments and see if you guys agree or don't agree. I do not think that they've kept up with the times very well. What that really means is that for a very small handful of you, then CR Interactive is still a good example. And it used to be a platform in which it was really well known for SEO. And you can do SEO stuff on this platform. That is how they got on my radar years ago and how they remain on my radar now. My job has always been to create a platform that's a good filtered search site, but also can apply all those design elements that make it great SEO site. Now, I've done that. It's going to be called a Lead Master Teams website. Okay, it's designed mostly for big agents or brokers, but like a guy like Tony over at Ruby Home, which should find it very interesting as well. It cuts your ownership price on a site like this down by 70%. It gives you all the features and functions that I've already basically said don't exist with this site. Mobile friendliness, better content management tools, and obviously, since we're a marketing company, it's a fully managed site, but you own it. And that's the part where it's the 70% break, because all these platforms, this one included, you don't own. Now, that's not to say there's not a good use. CR Interactive is still a good company. I used to have a lot more ability to make some guesses about CR Interactive because Ben had been around as long as I had in the real estate business. He was a quiet guy, a world-class developer. He had specialties that I covered in other videos I've done, and he checked out. He sold the company over to ASG. okay, which is an acquisitions company. This is like they're doing like 24 rounds of financing, of which is this is their 24th. And so all the people that run this place are people that basically acquire SaaS companies and then do something bigger or better with them. Now, what that generally means, and is true in this case, is somebody from outside the vertical comes in and says, we're going to make this more profitable because you really basically didn't know how to run an SaaS company, and we'll show you. I'm not saying I don't know this guy that runs the company, Peter Magalithlin, but he does have a track record of owning other companies of which he's sold out of. And I have researched some of those companies. He's got a CFO of Trade Hounds and another company that was Hourly Nerd, and he's got a career in finance. And he has always looked at businesses. He should know a lot about businesses. Going into a business he does not know and trying to figure it out seems like he should theoretically be able to do it. But what always catches every single professional, myself included, when I first stepped into real estate, off guard what even Gary Keller underestimated, okay, who's been doing this for close to 50, 30, 40 years or something, and has written a few books on the subject. Realtors and digital are two different things. They're two different things. Digital acquisition of realtor clients and getting them to use those products is always a challenge for everybody. Somebody coming in from out of space, now let's just say that you've got a company for sale. While I have not met him personally, the rumor is that Ben's kind of a quiet guy. Let's just say you ask Ben, what do you think your customers need? Do you think you've provided it? You know, that kind of thing in a CRM. And he goes, yes, because real estate agents are always asking you for an all-in-one tool and all this different stuff that he's seemingly taken a stab at. But what realtors think they want is oftentimes stripped down by 4 levels from other realtors. That is where the proliferation of all realtors moving from one new thing to another new thing to another new thing. Because here's the thing, realtors by and large do not have the digital education to understand what they want. They assume that we as the providers can build something that they're going to use. The closest iteration of that was Follow Up Boss. And for those of you who don't know the history of the CRM, it was built over 2 or 4 generations of product service, and they kept improving it upon it over and over again until they finally got it right in the 4th iteration, then sold it for $500 million to Zillow because they got it right. They got it right based on 7, 8, 9 years of innovation and constantly going back to the drawing board and figuring out over and over again, because realtors can't communicate to you what they want. They're not usually experienced telemarketers, experienced salespeople, or experienced this. And digital in the world of real estate is still relatively new, which is crazy to think about, but true, okay? Many agents that I've talked to still operate their entire business off a phone book and their phone. That's it. So you've got a very unusual profession that you're aiming at. So when you say, I have a website that do everything, the expectation, correct or not, is oftentimes wave a magic wand and it'll do everything. Why do I mention all that in terms of leadership? Well, Peter took over the CEO role, and then he has a CTO as basically his number 2, and that's Jeffrey Campbell. And Jeffrey Campbell was a technical program manager at Stripe. Now, Stripe is without question one of the most innovative companies that's out there in the financial space specifically. And the young guys that run it, because they're super young, they seem to have a pretty good eye and understanding of what's going on in the financial payments industry, especially as it relates to e-commerce. And boy, oh boy, could real estate not be farther away from these things. He's got team lead at CleverTech, founding principal engineer at DYME, director of software development at Alberis, in various roles at Indie Denim, Archetype Solutions, and worked at a consultant for multiple companies. So he sounds like a clever, talented guy. Never having worked with Sierra Interactive before, never having worked probably with real estate agents, or maybe only in a limited way. Why do I say that? Because I have heard nobody who's really said that they've talked to Ben or the former CEO anytime recently, okay? Anytime recently. The former COO was Brandon Hedges. And Brandon Hedges apparently remains with the company. But I don't think he was one of the chief operating officer. I don't think he was one of those companies that interface with the clients. I occasionally heard about Ben talking to some old veteran clients that he had for a long, long time since he started the company. Now, why do I say all of this? Well, I feel like once again, the company's kind of been handed over to a relatively inexperienced in this particular vertical team, okay? Am I saying that they're bad? I have no idea whether they're good or bad. I don't know. I've just seen this happen 50 different times inside the real estate space. And it's happened a lot with the SAS companies because somebody came and did the same thing with IDX Broker, except that was Elm Street. And this is, everybody looks at the real estate industry and correctly says, God, that's ripe for acquisition and improvement. And it is, assuming that you understand what the baked in challenges of the industry are. Because if you don't, you're just going to shit the bed, piss your clients off, and probably kind of tank the company you took over. Now, to a degree, that's happening with IDX Broker. It's happened with every single takeover that's ever happened. It happened with Tiger Leads. I can go on and on. It's happened 50 times in the industry. Nobody understands what it takes to be part of, you got to work pretty gosh darn hard as a real estate marketing company, a real estate tech company, because the basic level of knowledge you assume that your users have, oftentimes real estate agents don't have. So you got to get out there and educate them on how to do things like use Twitter, stuff like that. That is not true in a lot of industries. It just happens to be true in this one. My summary is that with new leadership in there, my last little bit of information is as follows. I have heard from a lot of my big or former big clients with Sierra Interactive, and comments that I'm getting are the same universally. Customer service has become worse than it was, and it wasn't great to start with. Nobody can get a hold of most of the people that they used to talk to or used to work with, and there's nobody new there to pick up the phone and answer concerns, address concerns, whatever, make changes, get little loopholes filled, none of that. The feeling is that with very much most tech takeovers, the new guys think that they don't ever need to talk to their clients. That is exactly 100% what's happened at IDX Broker. They used to be a Slack channel. They terminated it. Right now have an okay turnaround on their 800 number, but while I've been sitting in this seat, they've taken as long as 2 weeks to respond to calls. They terminated the former staff. They hired and then a CEO resigned. This is the nature of the real estate business because the people that are buying these companies do not know what they're buying. Now, maybe they'll figure it out eventually. I am sure that they will. And if you have the patience and the will, or you've held on to a site like these guys have for many years, it doesn't make sense to terminate or do anything. You may want to buy a second site as a redundancy option, but you definitely may not want to get rid of nor transfer your platform. I'm not saying that at all. It's just you should expect a ever decreasing amount of connection to the company. And unless these guys surprise me and are actually doing a ton of development on the back end, because here's one thing that also doesn't generally happen when you're acquired. Generally speaking, the people who are funding this acquisition say, acquire that company and let's just run it more efficiently and get more money out of it. That's it. They're not saying, let's invest $2 million and make it better. Almost promise you that's not what they're thinking at Sierra Interactive. The chances of them improving this platform significantly are low. It would be weird for them to get a big capital infusion from the company that is distributing, and they have the money. They got billions. So they have the money. This last distribution was 2.5 billion. So a little of that could come Sierra Interactive's way if they wanted to, and then they could put some developers on staff and make this thing better. But most of the time, and again, it's true with Elm Street and IDX Broker, most of the time it's get in there and get us more money. And they're doing that egregiously over at IDX Broker. Terrible. Just totally abandoning their developer partner strategy that they've had in the past, literally saying, we've been giving you overrides, we're not going to anymore. Just kidding. So forcing you all to, and that's the attitude in many cases, not every case, and I do not know ASG, so I cannot say for certain. But I am sharing my legitimate history and background. And remember, for those of you watching this video and tuning into this long summary, I've been at this for 17 years. I've been part of some of these acquisitions. I sit on the board of a number of real estate tech companies, including one in prop tech. I am very familiar with the conversations that take place behind closed doors that have to do with these companies, because there are many real estate agents that simply pay a bill like Sierra Interactive for 10, 20 straight years and never even pay attention to where it's going. You get them all the time in this business. That's how Agent Image has, whatever they have, 10 to 30,000 installs that pay them $100 a month, because they've been building that database for 30 years. And some agents, once they get a website that they like the way it looks and they spent a decent amount of money on it, they never change. I mean, ever. They die with the same website. It's a weird industry to work in. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for any of the integrations, you want to know what your options are, you want me to do a deep dive comparison, you're going to want to use the calendar link that'll be in the description of this video, and you're going to want to actually book an appointment with me. Or you want to go to inboundrem.com if you'd like to see other information I have on some of these other platforms, or look at other reviews that I have. Now, as the filming of this one, this is the first deep dive I've done in about 4 or 5 years. I have stayed away from the format, but I am getting back into it this year. I intend to redo all platforms that I can get access to and do the same kind of really intense deep dive and turn it to like 100, like 10, 20 shorter videos and really get into it for you guys. All right. So if you have any suggestions about what you'd like to see me do next, if you want me to put anything at the top of my list, also put that down in the comments. I appreciate you tuning in. I've been Robert Newman, the founder of InboundREM. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review of SEO Interactive.